Have you ever wondered how a poor boy from the countryside could grow up to change a whole nation? What would it take to stay strong when life gets hard? Today, let's walk together through the story of Abraham Lincoln, a boy with little schooling, big dreams, and a heart full of kindness. His life shows us how courage, honesty, and hard work can change the world. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small log cabin in Kentucky. His family was very poor. They lived far from towns and schools. Life was hard. When Abe was only 9 years old, his mother, Nancy, died of a sickness. It was a sad and lonely time for him. Later, his father remarried. His new stepmother, Sarah, was kind to him. She brought books into the home and encouraged him to read. Abe loved reading more than anything. Even though he had very little formal schooling, he taught himself by reading books again and again. His early life in the wild lands taught him to be strong, to think deeply, and to never give up. As a teenager, Abraham helped his family on the farm. When he was about 19, he took a trip down the Mississippi River to New Orleans. There he saw something that shocked him: slavery. He saw people being bought and sold like objects. This sight stayed with him forever. In 1830, his family moved to Illinois. Soon after, Abraham decided to live on his own. He worked many jobs, chopping wood, running a store, and surveying land. He also served briefly in the Black Hawk War. Though he did not fight in battles, he was elected a captain by the other soldiers. This showed that people already trusted his leadership. In 1832, Lincoln tried to run for state legislature but lost. Still, people noticed his honesty and spirit. 2 years later, he tried again, and this time, he won. He served in the Illinois legislature for 8 years. While working as a legislator, Lincoln studied law by himself at night. In 1836, he became a licensed lawyer. He moved to Springfield, Illinois, and opened a law office. He soon became known for being fair, clear, and honest. People called him Honest Abe. His work in law and politics taught him to speak clearly, think carefully, and respect every person. In 1842, Abraham married Mary Todd, a bright and strong-willed woman. They had 4 sons, but sadly, only one lived to adulthood. Life at home was sometimes hard. Mary had a strong personality, and the deaths of their children caused deep sadness. Still, Lincoln remained gentle and patient. His family life taught him understanding and compassion. He knew that real strength often means being kind, even when the heart is heavy with sorrow. In 1846, Lincoln was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. He spoke out against the Mexican-American War because he thought it was unfair. This made him unpopular for a time. After just 1 term, he returned to Illinois and focused on his law practice. For a few years, it seemed Lincoln's political life might be over, but in 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act reopened the fierce debate over slavery. Lincoln could not stay silent. He began to speak out more and more against the spread of slavery. not just in private talks, but in public speeches. In 1858, Lincoln ran for the U.S. Senate against Stephen Douglas. During this race, they held a series of public debates. Lincoln spoke firmly but respectfully about slavery. He said slavery was wrong and should not spread into new lands. Although Lincoln lost the election, the debates made him famous across the country. People admired his careful thinking, his moral courage, and his plain way of speaking. The world now saw him as a strong new voice for freedom. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was chosen by the Republican Party to run for president. His message was simple: stop the spread of slavery and keep the country united. Lincoln won the election. But even before he took office, some southern states decided to leave the United States. They feared he would end slavery. Tension grew, and soon the nation was at war with itself. The American Civil War lasted from 1861 to 1865. It was the greatest crisis in American history. As president, Lincoln faced many challenges. He had to hold the North together, find strong generals, and support soldiers and families who were tired of war. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that slaves in rebellious states were free. While it did not end slavery completely, it gave new meaning to the war. Now, the fight was not just about saving the Union, it was also about human freedom. Later in 1863, after a terrible battle at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Lincoln gave a short speech. It became one of the most famous speeches in history. He said the nation was built on the idea that all men are created equal. He urged Americans to honor the soldiers who had died by continuing the work of freedom. His words were simple but powerful. They showed Lincoln's deep love for democracy and hope for the future. In 1864, Lincoln was re-elected as president. The war was turning toward victory for the North. On April 9, 1865, the Confederate Army surrendered. The long and painful war was finally over. But just days later, on April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln was shot while attending a play at Ford's Theater. He died the next morning. He was only 56 years old. The news shocked the nation. People wept openly in the streets. Lincoln had led them through their hardest days, and now he was gone. While Lincoln is greatly loved today, not everyone agreed with him during his life. Some thought he moved too slowly to end slavery. Others thought he used too much power as president, especially when he suspended certain legal rights during the war. Early in his career, Lincoln did not always support full equality between black and white Americans. His views grew and changed over time. He came to believe more strongly in freedom and fairness for all people. Lincoln was not perfect, but he listened, he learned, and he grew wiser through his struggles. Abraham Lincoln's story is not just an American story. It belongs to the whole world. He showed that honesty, kindness, and courage are stronger than hatred and fear. His life reminds us that great leaders do not have to come from rich families or famous schools. True greatness comes from the heart. Lincoln's dream of a united country, free for all, continues to inspire millions today. His face is on coins and statues, but more importantly, his spirit lives on wherever people believe in freedom and equality. 3 questions to think about. When life is unfair or painful, how can you stay true to what is right, like Lincoln did? Abraham Lincoln learned from his mistakes. Can you think of a time when changing your ideas made you stronger? Why do you think Lincoln's simple way of speaking touched so many people, even after so many years? Telling Abraham Lincoln's story feels like walking with an old friend through storms and sunshine. He was not born great. He became great by how he lived and how he grew through sadness, mistakes, and hope. Maybe that is why we still remember him today. He reminds us that one honest voice can help heal a broken world, and maybe, just maybe, each of us has a little of Lincoln's light inside.